Bama won the Iron Bowl yesterday, which is shocking because they tried 47 different ways not to win the Iron Bowl yesterday, and yet 27-24 was the final. You know, last week, we were coming at this very point off the heels of Auburn falling to New Mexico State. And I looked at it, and we had a little fun with it, as did most of the college football public. But then we got to Monday and Tuesday, and I started to notice Bama fans aren't stupid. They know the history of this rivalry. They know the history of them having to go play at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And so I took to the socials, and I tweeted the following. I said, 31-10, New Mexico State over Auburn. It's humiliating. It's degrading. But I said, quote, the best part about Iron Bowl history at Jordan-Hare is how Bama fans instantly knew to be worried when New Mexico State blew Auburn out last week. This is not an I told you so moment. I mean, I kind of did there, but I thought Bama was going to run away with the game. So I didn't get the result I expected at all. However, there was no shock on my face whatsoever when this went down. The thing that went down was unbelievable. In fact, I'll tell you about my experience in a second. Let's just talk about what went down here. There is a tough lesson learned by Hugh Freeze. Scratch that. Freeze knows the lesson. It was a tough lesson learned by the players on that Auburn team. A lot of new folks in the Auburn program. A lot of folks facing Alabama for the first time. And the lesson is this. You got to cut the head off the snake. You can't run over it. You can't just step on it. You've got to take an axe and you got to cut the head off the snake. Because if you don't, it will bite you even though you think it is dead and buried and gone. Bama's the snake. And yet again, someone ran over him a couple of times and said, all right, well, that takes care of that. So many chances for Auburn. So many percentage chances that look like 90%, 95%, 97%. ESPN's got that thing that is probably powered by the same machine that powers FPI, so I don't put a whole lot of stock into it. But you had the ESPN machine saying at one point Bama had a 0.1% chance to win the game yesterday. I actually don't think that's too far off. But you know what we got? Instead of an Auburn win, what we got is a Sarah McLachlan special. It's not even a stat. What we got is we had a situation, and I'm watching this in an airport, mind you. We had a situation where fourth quarter, 4th and goal, you got everybody back. They're 31 yards from the end zone. This is the part where Auburn only rushes 2 guys. They spy Milroe inexplicably, even though he's got half a mile to run to get a touchdown. And there's Isaiah Bond. Back of the end zone, touchdown. It gets no more Sarah McLachlan special than that. They might as well have played it on that very, very expensive PA system and video board they have. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. And now let me tell you where I watched this game. Okay, our CBS crew's there. Big game. Jenny Dell's on the sideline. We got Brad and Gary in the booth. I am about 1,000 miles away, and I am in the Detroit airport. And I got to tell you, friends, I know when college football games are going on Saturdays, most of you are parked in front of a TV or you're in a stadium. But we're on the road every week, and fingers crossed, my game normally happens at noon if I get my way. And sure enough, Michigan-Ohio State happens at noon yesterday. So we do our post game once the field clears, and then we hightail it to Detroit. Not a bad drive yesterday. And we get in the airport. And if you've never witnessed a major college football Saturday and a big college football moment in a large, like, international airport, it's a sight to behold. College football is a massive game in this country. Massive. And it's never on display more readily than if you're in a major airport as a major college football moment happens. So here's the scene. Detroit's airport is just this one, 10-mile-long terminal, it seems. And so you can see, as far as the eye can see, all the way down the corridor, you can see just pockets of people, and it looks like they're waiting for bags, but they're not. They're crowded around restaurants, and they're too cheap to buy anything. I was one of them. And they're watching TVs from out in the regular concourse. So let me set the scene for you. It's 4th and goal from the 31-yard line yesterday, and everyone is glued in Detroit, Michigan, to a television as best they can get their eyes on. And when that play happened, there was one TV, like way down several gates, that apparently was a little ahead of the other TVs. And so this massive commotion just echoes down the corridor in the terminal. And then about 5 seconds later, Milroe lets go of that ball. Isaiah Bond catches it in the back of the end zone. And you would have thought the Red Wings either won the Stanley Cup or lost the Stanley Cup on like an overtime shootout goal. That's what it sounded like in Detroit's airport. Could you imagine being in Shuttlesworth or Hartsfield or somewhere in the South when that happened? Insane. And temporarily, you start seeing folks high-five strangers, and then you start seeing other people slump their shoulders and their head, even though they're wearing, like, Michigan gear. And what are you mad for? Well, I don't know. I just hate Bama. And then you got another guy who is sitting there oblivious to it all. He's probably from France, and he's connecting in Detroit, flying to Tucson to see his daughter graduate or something like that. And he's like, this is not even football. It's amazing. Amazing to see a major college football play or ending go down in an airport. Auburn had success running the ball against Alabama. And I know when you look at the box score and you see Auburn ran it 42 times for 244 yards and 2 scores, you think, wow, Bama's vulnerable. That's not good at all, which it's not. But you know which game it reminded me of? It reminded me of when Auburn ran it 43 times for 219 and 2 scores on Georgia. The 2 best teams they faced, they ran it for over 2 bills on each of them. And it's almost like Hugh Freeze knows a thing or two. And he's working with bubble gum and paper clips for a roster down there right now. So they're not looking for a moral victory, and I'm not even here to grant them one. I'm just saying those 2 teams, Bama and Georgia, play each other this Saturday. And Auburn ran it on both of them. It's pretty interesting. Just tuck that away. But as soon as this game ended, people who know college football watched this ending and they said, man, you got to cut the head off the snake. You can't let Bama stay alive. And then other people said, wow, what an ending. And they just appreciated it for what it was. But then you had a sizable majority say, this Bama team's got no shot against Georgia. Well, you're probably right about that. Here's the follow-up. That Bama team's not playing Georgia. That's the follow-up. Georgia's team last night that faced Georgia Tech, that's not the team that'll play Alabama either. I start to say if you've watched college football long enough, you should know better. But I got folks way older than me that say this stuff sometimes. And so I don't know. I don't think it's utter stupidity. I'm not going to be one to say that. I will just repeat the words of Meemaw. Smart people do say casual things sometimes. Casual people rarely say smart things. So for all I know, many of you are geniuses, genii, the plural, and you just maybe don't possess the ability to understand week to week the performance level you get from teams in college changes radically. You want evidence? The same things that led to Auburn losing handedly to New Mexico State, but then taking Bama to the wire, are the same sorts of things that could see Bama taken to the wire in a game they should lose one week and then possibly go beat Georgia in Atlanta the next week. Stuff happens all the time. Happens all the time. Think about 2 years ago. We got an SEC championship game featuring these same 2 teams, and Bama's got no run game to speak of, and no one ever beats Georgia being one-dimensional. And I sat here, we were in the other studio, but I sat here in the greater Nashville area, and I said, Colin, I hardly ever pick against Bama because they hardly ever lose. I don't really see a way they're going to win this game. And so I took Georgia, I laid the points, and I was confident. And Bama goes in there and beats them by like 2 touchdowns. And I'm saying, how did this happen? Well, it happened because Alabama's built to beat Georgia, and Georgia's built to beat Bama. They are built to beat each other. They mirror each other. Half the staffs worked previously for the other staff. They know each other as well as they know themselves. It is a one-game season. You may, for all you know, be watching the 2 best in the country Saturday. And you look at it and you say, well, there's no way. There's no way. Because look, respectively, they just won games by 1 possession this past weekend. I don't know what to tell you. I have a sneaking suspicion, and it's just a suspicion. Had the SEC championship game been played yesterday in the minds of those players, maybe you see 3 or 4 touchdown wins either way. I don't know. Maybe you do. I'm just telling you, I don't watch the Iron Bowl outcome yesterday, nor do I watch Georgia Tech and Georgia. Kind of lethargic a little bit. I couldn't care less. I care that they win because it, crystallizes the importance of the game coming up. Going to be a war in Atlanta Saturday. But as for Auburn, man, nothing changes. Nothing really changes about the game. Look, if Auburn would have won the game, yeah, it's great for recruiting. It doesn't really change the caliber of the program. It doesn't change what I think Hugh Freeze can do. It was good that they had recruits there to witness the environment. It was good because as soon as you do that, as a coaching staff, you get to look those kids in the eye and say, look how close we just came. Now imagine what we could be if we had you. It's a pitch as old as time, but it works if the right staff is pitching it.